Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop Fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. To celebrate the state of emergency that our world is in, I watched Outbreak with Dustin Hoffman and Cuba Gooding Jr. Yeah, and
good.
Yep, and
it's not Ebola in that, is it?
It's what is it? Motaba.
Motaba. Well,
but you know what happened? You remember what happened, right? It was that was I remember what's his name? What's his name? Michael Crichton.
Yeah, I remember the sneeze going through the vent in the movie theater.
Yes, yeah, that happened. But see, it was Michael Crichton writing the fictionalized account. I think it came. I think this is the way where I haven't done the research on this. I need to check it out. But I'm thinking we need to do a disease series next year. I want to do like Contagion, and well, anyway. So I think what happened was Hot Zone was the account of the discovery of Ebola. And then Michael Crichton wrote the fictionalized version of that and called it Motaba, because I think, and I'm no virologist, but I think when they show the slides of the actual virus of Motaba that they call Motaba in Outbreak, I think it looks it looks like Ebola. Like it's looked like they just took Ebola and made it Motaba.
Right.
So maybe that's why it's so mad.
Do you think that's what started the fury? The fury begins.
Really, it's horrible. This is horrible stuff. I'm not in a panic state about it, at this point, but it's ugly for those who are dealing with it.
Oh yeah, it's pretty horrible.
So I watched that, and then after that, to chill off, I watched Her.
Oh, cool!
Yeah.
I have one that I still have yet to see.
Really?
I know. It's. I always try to catch up on my Oscar nominees, and I somehow missed that one. And I mean, everything about it screams, Andy, you need to watch this. But
we should do a Scarlett Johansson is a computer series of Her and Lucy.
Yeah, but I don't think you wanted to watch Lucy again.
No, we can do it without actually watching Lucy. Believe me, it'll be the same conversation.
Excellent.
But this one, I will tell you. Let me just tell you about it. I thought it was lovely, and I found myself not a little bit heartbroken at the end. It's been gnawing at me. I want you to watch it so we can talk about it, because I thought it was beautifully well done.
Nice.
Yeah. It was a redemption film from Lucy.
Oh, good.
Which was a bucket of poop.
What is that other movie that she did that also looked really interesting? Under the Skin?
Yeah.
Yeah, not a robot, but certainly an otherworldly being that is...
very different.
Yeah.
Very different for her, especially, so...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was good. What about you? You see anything this week, or you just been busy? Budgeting, producing?
What have I seen? I did go see... what did I take the kids to? The Book of Life.
Oh, what'd you think?
I thought it was... I enjoyed it. It's a really magical film. It's a beautiful world. It's a magical story. I felt the story itself was lacking from my perspective. The story, things happened just because it felt like they needed to happen in context of the story. So I never really got fully invested in it. But the kids loved it. They had a great time. I felt if they could have overcome some of the story issues, it would have been a really fantastic film. As it stands, I mean, it's gorgeous. It's a beautiful world that they created here, and it certainly is worth checking out. So it's, kids will love it. I think adults will, for the most part, enjoy it too. And it's, other than just the story issues, that's my biggest gripe. But hey, it's making money at the box office, so they're doing a good job with it.
Well, that's great. It's intriguing, and I haven't. It's one of those like Box Trolls that was really intriguing to me, but I haven't seen it. We haven't. My kids are at that age now where they would rather see
Maze Runner,
right? Yeah,
yeah.
And so I'm missing, there was a window where we would see every animated everything.
Right.
And now we're seeing all the YA stuff. So
right.
So be it. Shall we tell the people where we're from?
Where are we from?
Everybody, it's The Next Reel. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Pete Wright. That there is Andy Nelson.
Howdy do.
And we spoil movies heartily. You can catch up with us. You can learn a little bit about us at thenextreel.com. You can follow us on all the various social platforms. It's typically just, xyz.com/thenextreel. If you want to find us, go there. And we would love to talk to you and hear about your thoughts on movies. That's what we want to hear.
Absolutely.
What do we have to share with the people this week. We did our listener's choice last week. And
We did.
We've now been in touch with the good and kindly Jeremy Wickett.
Yes.
And we're working out those details. Very excited about that. Who won the listener's choice? We're not going to tell what movie he's picked, but I'm going to tell you this.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty excited.
I knew you would be.
What are the odds? Seriously, that
I know.
it was like weeks ago. I was telling you I really want to talk about this movie. How can we work it in? And then he would pick this movie.
You're like, we need to build a series around it.
Yeah.
It makes me think the whole thing was set up.
Totally. Who would rig this?
Right. They went to a lot of trouble to rig that
so
Listener's Choice Award there. Pete.
I am very excited about this. Clearly, the good Mr. Wickett and I are kindred spirits. So this will be a lot of fun. What else do we have to talk about with the? Do we have any other updates we need to share with people about that kind of stuff?
Not that. I don't think so. I think that's it. Other than, keep guessing on the Instagram Pony Prize contest, because that drawing is coming up in a couple months, right?
It is. And speaking of the moment everybody's all been waiting for, I'm sure. How did you do this week on the Standy versus the People?
The Standees. It was a little bit of a trip, I guess you could say. A little bit of a stumble. First image out of the gate, and it took, dare I say, moments before good old Soda Pop Rocker nailed it. Right out of the gate. And he knew right away that image was from none other than the cult classic Heathers. And so that was
He did. That was so fast. There wasn't even nothing. The first comment, the first image, Heathers.
Yep.
And then Blot, of course. Ben Lott comes in. Oh, yeah, I've seen that probably more than once.
Yep.
That's awesome.
It's a very identifiable film, but it's good to throw these in once in a while for people, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's
The
because
easy ones?
Yeah, lowers their guard.
That's right, because then next thing you know, we're going to get Fritz Lang's Spies again. Really throw him for a loop.
That's right. You call up Steven and say, "Release the Kraken."
That's right.
That's right. And it comes out.
Oh yes.
Well, this is a great set of images, and I this is a big favorite of mine too, Heathers.
Yeah, it'd be fun to do a little cult classic series.
It sure would. It sure would.
Let's do trailers.
I'm going to go first. My trailer, it really piques my curiosity, and I don't really know what to say about it because there is so little information out there about it. But it is called Ambition, and it's actually opening tomorrow at the BFI Sci-Fi Film Festival up in the UK. So good old Stephen Smart can try to make his way over there to see it tomorrow. But it's this interesting looking film called Ambition that, the trailer doesn't give you a lot other than it's this really interesting looking sci-fi story that is about some people. It looks like kind of a mentor and a student, and they're learning to kind of make worlds is kind of really all that you get out of the teaser for this interesting film. But the thing that caught my eye is that it has none other than Littlefinger in it from Game of Thrones. Aidan Gillen plays the mysterious mentor figure who is training this. It looks like he's training this woman, Aisling Franciosi, I think is her name.
I think so.
It looks like she's, moving her hands around and rocks and things are forming and coming together. And I mean, I wish that I knew more about it. My curiosity has been thoroughly piqued, and I just really want to see this now because I just don't see a lot of really unique sci-fi movies that I don't. That have something kind of new and interesting looking. This looks new and interesting. I think they filmed it in Iceland, and it has that craggy sort of look that I think we last saw in Prometheus, which also kind of had that. I think they filmed some of that up there. So I mean, it draws me in, and I want to know more. So their teaser has thoroughly teased me.
It really it's beautiful. I mean, it gives you, I don't know, it's sort of that Oh gosh, what is the dream thing? What's that movie I like so much? Or the dreams. He was going to the dreams, and they rob people in the dreams.
Yeah, Inception.
Inception. It's got that sort of like the same thing that captivates me about Inception. This idea of total control over the universe in which you exist is right here. But then it goes into this whole like cellular thing. And you know the chimps beating each other with rocks, and then I mean it's just it's it's a big deal, but it looks really, really interesting, and I'm with you. I think it looks beautiful.
Yeah,
I look forward to it. It's weird. I can't see it in like an Aidan Gillen's IMDb page. It's not. It doesn't appear to even be listed.
He's not listed on their page on IMDb. Only Aisling Franciosi is listed on it. It's directed by Tomek Baginski, but their website Ambition, I think it's ambitionfilm.com. It still doesn't have a ton of information, but it does have some stills. You can see kind of making of photos. You can check out the posters and stuff like that. So it's a site that they're still, clearly a lot of stuff is, being built and updated and everything, since it's just I guess at the festival point right now. But
well, it looks really, really interesting.
Yeah, yes, it does.
All right.
Yes, it does. So that's mine. What's
my
yours?
Turn?
Yeah.
Oh my god, 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 I can't wait. I'm doing Avengers Age of Ultron. Trailer came out yesterday. I immediately...
Accidentally.
Accidentally. Damn it, Hydra. That was a great Twitter response, but they did a good job. That's nice to be able to laugh about all these things.
Well, and I think it was very smart on their part to just say, Hydra's, they screwed us up. Let's just release the high def now. It's like, they just took it in stride.
They totally did. And well done, Marvel. Good spirits, good sports. The trailer is amazing. And I'm just a hooligan for these characters. Like, I think it's been like in the back of my mind kind of dormant how excited I am now about these characters. I cannot wait to see what they do with them. I think Ultron looks terrific, sounds terrific. The trailer is haunting, doing the song from Pinocchio, There Ain't No Strings on Me, in a really haunting minor key.
Did you say There Ain't No Strings on Me?
Yeah, I did.
That's a different version of Pinocchio that I saw. Yo, there ain't no strings on me.
That's kind of what I imagine Ultron sounds like when he's off duty. And so I'm very enthusiastic about this film. And so immediately my son was sound asleep, and I went up and I took the iPad up and I woke him up and played it for him. Needless to say,
just like a good father should.
Not easy to get him to go back to sleep. Anyhow, so I'm very much looking forward to this. It opens May 1st, 2015.
I will say this made me more excited about this movie because, the Avengers, I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the vibe of that film, but I thought the story was really lacking, which, I think is a problem I have with a number of the Marvel films. But the Avengers really, especially when we got into that last fight, I just kind of thought it was a little tedious. But it looks like they've got just a much better story, much more interesting, and it looks really interesting the way that it ties in the nature of these superheroes and kind of this world that they've created by introducing, like Iron Man, Tony Stark says, this is the end of all the stuff that we've started. By creating all of these other kind of, I don't know what you call his troops, but the little Iron Man people that kind of can help stop crime and stuff. All of a sudden, things go awry, and I think it looks like a much more solid story that, in a way, feels more grounded in the just kind of the earthly element of the story being told.
Yeah, and there are some things that are, it feels like this is the end of a chapter, and we're going to be introduced to some new Avengers, and like it just feels like this is pivotal. This film is going to be pivotal in the cinematic universe, and I'm very excited about pivotal things. I like it when they blow them up. on giant screens. So this looks very exciting, and that old Joss Whedon, man, he can turn them out.
Yeah, and it's got Hulk Smasher,
and that was awesome. So very excited about this.
Nice.
I'm gonna go get in line now.
You know what I'm gonna do?
What?
I'm gonna put on some Liberace.
You almost died. You have a compound fracture of the tibia in both legs, and the fibula in the right leg is fractured too. And as soon as the road's open, I'll take you to a hospital. In the meantime, you've got a lot of recovering to do. There is nothing to worry about. You're gonna be just fine. I'm your #1 fan. My name is Annie Wilkes.
I think one of my clients, Paul Sheldon, might be in some kind of trouble.
You mean Paul Sheldon, the writer? Well, everybody sure likes those misery books.
We had it at the store, Paul.
They said he checked out last Tuesday. Isn't that a little strange?
I guess it was kind of a miracle you finding me.
In a way, I was following you.
You were following me.
Oh, Paul, I've read everything of yours, but the misery novels. You must be a good man, or you could never have created such a wondrous, loving creature as Misery Chastain.
Very kind.
The presumption must now be that Paul Sheldon is dead.
You dirty bird. How could you? Misery Chastain cannot be dead.
Misery Spirit is still alive.
I don't want her spirit! I want her! And you murdered her!
You don't think he's dead, do you?
And don't even think about anybody coming for you, because I never called them. Nobody knows you're here. And you better hope nothing happens to me. Because if I die, you die. Eventually, you'll come to accept the idea of being here.
Annie, whatever you think about doing, please don't do it. Annie, for God's...
Shh, darling. Trust me.
God's sake.
It's for the best. God, I love you.
Oh, Misery. Sweet
yes.
Misery. That's where we are right now. We're doing 1990s Misery, a Stephen King adaptation, continuing our Stephen King conversation. This one directed by Rob Reiner, written by a script written by Billy Goldman.
Billy G.
Oh, Billy G. Starring James Caan, Kathy Bates, and most importantly, Richard Farnsworth, who is always fantastic in everything ever.
It is.
Francis Sternhagen they're just cantankerous to each other. His wife, they're fantastic. And of course, Lauren Bacall, who is not in it much, but she is it's so great to see her on screen.
Yeah, it's always great to see her popping up, even if it is such a small little kind of a cameo role, but she's just great. She really is just great.
This is based on, obviously, the novel of the same name, Misery, which was, if I remember, much more gruesome than the film. And yet, the film is still terrifying. And I think it continues Stephen King's wonderful evolution as a writer as he begins to dig more into the things that he fears the most. And this, particularly according to Rob Reiner, this was a film that was very, very close to King, that this was the thing that he feared the most, being able to shift gears as a writer and begin to do things that risk disappointing his most ardent fans. And the nightmare that is Misery emerged from that. An author, Paul Sheldon, who is known for writing his fantasy romance series about old Misery Chastain, changes gears and kills his lead character, and this is what happens when his #1 fan gets him alone. How did it stand up for you?
This has always been one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations. It's such a it's a well crafted and very efficient story, and I really enjoy watching it. It just moves, and it's just really psychologically disturbing and creepy, and I think William Goldman, when he adapted the novel, found the right way to adapt it and left things out that didn't necessarily need to be there, or change them in order to just make the film work better as a film, and just on the whole really created in a way kind of just this perfect little horror movie.
Yeah, and yet this is funny. It's like we were talking about last week. This is a film. It's a horror film that is not terribly horrible, horrific, and yet it is. It's scary because, again, of that human element. This is the human terror, not the supernatural terror that we have had seen up really through Stand By Me, or to Stand By Me from King. And I think that's one of the things that makes this so powerful. It's a similar vibe. We had that theme replayed for us when we talked about, Fury. You've never seen what, I can't remember what the line was. I think it came from Bible, right? It was this whole concept of, what war is when the first time you see what another human being is able to do, what a human being is able to do to another human being. Right. Does that ring a bell? I know I'm butchering that line, but that was the idea. And that's what Misery, I think, really celebrates. In Stand By Me, we got the after effect of what a human being can do to another young man and kill him. We just have the body. But here we actually see, the terror itself as it plays out in real time, and it does so in a really interesting way. Annie Wilkes, played by Kathy Bates, I think she is an otherwise unassuming nurse, someone in a field that we are conditioned to trust, conditioned to believe that they are always there to help, and she does so by helping. She carries him in a fireman's carry. She carries James Caan across the woods.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
She's a fascinating character because not just because she's so helpful and knows how to take care of him and everything, but also because she, initially we get this sense that she knows who he is and she's there to help.
Yes. Out of grace and love and caring, because she's a nurse. She is the symbolic representation of all that is good and healing.
Right.
And we are thus betrayed by it.
Brutally.
Talk about Kathy Bates and her performance. What do you think of her?
I mean, first, I think that huge credit has to go to just, Stephen King in this brilliant writing of this amazing character of Annie Wilkes, and how really, truly terrifying she is as a person because of the psychology. And, he really is this master of writing, getting into the head of these characters and the psychology of them, especially the evil characters in his books. And that's something I've always loved, is how frightening the bad characters are in his books. I mean, I read Under the Dome, I think was the most recent book of his that I read. And just, the sheriff of the town is just, I mean, he's really just, it's really a terrifying character along with his son. And you get into their heads and you're playing that game with them as they're deciding to do these bad things, and it's really creepy. And he does that so well with this character of Annie Wilkes, and getting into kind of this passionate fandom world that she's in. She happens to be following her, or she doesn't happen. She's purposefully following her favorite author because she's a stalker, and he happens to get into car wreck, and he uses this. She uses this as her opportunity to help him, quote unquote. Which turns into this horror thing because she's this crazy #1 fan who hates his new direction that he's going in, because he's trying to get out of this kind of romance novelist sort of world that he's been pigeonholed into by writing this new book that is kind of an exploration of his youth and all that. She hates it because it's full of profanity and violence and all this. She gets mad at him, and then his latest novel, Misery's Child, comes out. She's so excited, she reads it, and then there's that terrifying moment when she comes in, or she wakes him and she's so upset because Misery Chastain dies at the end of the book. And that was his way to kind of kill that character so that he could move on and do other stuff. But for her, Misery Chastain was the end-all be-all, and that was the character that she wanted to follow. And she goes into this rage. She abandons him, leaving him, unable to move. It's just this terrifying situation that she's put him in. And what does she say? She's like, I think I should leave right now before I do something.
Yeah, this is right after she nearly
unwise.
smashed the table on his head.
Right, exactly. She throws it at the wall, and she's so upset, and then she just leaves. And I mean, there's definitely this person who is clearly just psychologically disturbed, and she's got some. I mean, I look at it as she's just a person with a serious mental disorder, and probably clearly a killer of some sort. We never really get a sense as to what she's done in her past when we see the kind of the scrapbook that she's kept. But as a nurse in the maternity ward, there were a lot of mysterious baby deaths, and I think there were some other people. I know in the book she had killed. Her scrapbook had included a lot of other stuff. Like I think it alludes to her having killed her father, to having killed like a college roommate, I think, and gosh, who else? And then just a bunch of the babies and stuff like that. I don't. It's a little vaguer in the movie, but that's fine. I don't think you need to have it all spelled out. You get this sense that she is this kind of crazy lady who, when she's happy, she's really happy. When she's upset, she's really upset. And God forbid you're on the receiving end of being around her when she's upset, because it will turn fast. And that's what happens in this situation. And man, Kathy Bates is so spot on the entire time in this film. She's perfect as that adoring fan. She's perfect as that woman who lives in the country that you kind of don't want to pay attention to when she's yelling at you when she drives through town and shakes her fist at you. She's that really kind of kook that has the pet pig and is that romance novelist fan. But when she turns, it's so frightening, and she plays that perfectly. From the moments when she's screaming at him to that, one of the most terrifying lines for me is when right after she hobbles this guy and she looks at him and is just like, God, I love you. Oh. It's like, oh, that is almost scarier than the hobbling. So she's just the perfect person to have been cast in this role, and rightfully won an Oscar for it, and knows how to play all the levels up and down all through the film and make it work in context of the story, and works really well with James Caan. I mean, she was good. She's really freaking creepy.
She is incredibly creepy. You know what? I think one of the elements you alluded to here, you touched on, is this idea of fandom. And what Annie Wilkes represents to this idea or ideal of fandom. And I think that's one of the most interesting concepts at work in this film, that we have a writer who has devoted much of his adult career to writing this character. When he comes into contact with Annie Wilkes, what he realizes is that he no longer owns his work, right? His work is owned in some respect by the fans, and she is a representation, as I view it, of this fandom, and part of the horror that comes with Paul Sheldon's new awareness of his situation is that he has lost control, and that he is merely a custodian of this Misery Chastain at the mercy, so to speak, of the fans. And that's very much a sort of a growing up for Paul Sheldon. And obviously what happens in the film is the horrific story of him trying to escape his imprisonment. But there is very much a cerebral kind of an awakening that happens as well, which is, I think very much a representation of my view watching Stephen King at this point of his writing career, of figuring out how to be a custodian of the work and still be able to create something out of out of his heart. That is, I think, such an interesting translation for me. I can't not think about that when I watch this movie. That Annie Wilkes represents the people that we all serve if we're in any sort of creative endeavor. The fans, the people who listen, and I think about it just as I talk about Avengers, right? I can be just as loony a fanboy as anybody else, about these things. It is easy to sort of see yourself lose control a little bit, right? I mean, when there's something that you really find an affinity for, that affinity relationship, I think is much more powerful than we give credit for. We sort of malign it when it comes to, teens in line at a Taylor Swift concert, but nerds in line at a Star Wars convention, it's that vibe, and that's one of the things I love so much about this movie is the way these two characters, the way James Caan and Kathy Bates play with each other, in this idea of what it means to be a fan and what it means to have to sort of let go.
Yeah, it's especially in today's age with the way that fandom has evolved through social media. Mm-hmm. It does make it much more interesting. And you look at something like The Bling Ring, which is a kind of a frightening look at how, in the modern world, how fandom can kind of turn into this kind of this stalking and robbery sort of mentality that these people have, because now it's like they want to kind of have that same sort of level of fame, which is an interesting look at how it has changed a little bit. But but fandom, it's really interesting how it does continue to evolve. And I think you're right. It's in this film, it is a very interesting look at that person and who it is who's kind of owns that material now.
Yeah, I mean that was really the lesson for me was of this film, was the intention of the film, to me at least, appeared to be look what happens when the blessing is you have built an amazing following of readers around the world who absolutely love what you have done and love what you have created, and as Bacall's character, his agent, says, this Misery Chastain put braces on your kids and put them through college, and so let's not be too hasty and in whatever comes next, but because that's the blessing of fandom, is that you've created something that is a gift to people's lives, that gives them inspiration. And this is a movie that defines in no uncertain terms what happens, the betrayal. It sort of puts that visceral connection, or that palpable connection to the betrayal that comes when you've reached the end of it.
There's an interesting element to that, I think, also is Stephen King said, I mentioned, I think I can't remember which episode, maybe it was Cujo, how in Entertainment Weekly, at the time Green Mile came out in 1999, Stephen King had put this top 10 list of his favorite adaptations of his novels. And Misery is, I think, number 5 on the list. And number 6 on the list. And he said about it, he said, William Goldman's best script since Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and a bravura performance by Kathy Bates. If there's a flaw, it's that the movie never quite explains writer Paul Sheldon's salvation, his imagination. I got a peek at Goldman's original script, which would have allowed viewers to explore the writer's mind. If they'd made that one, James Caan might also have won a little gold statue. I find that very interesting, and I read the book, it was so long ago, but I do remember that there was a lot, like you would kind of go into the world of Misery, as this new book that he's writing, Misery Reborn or whatever, Misery's Return, and you'd kind of get that story with the missing typewriter key and all that as he'd be typing those chapters. And that was, as you know from the novel and from the movie, essentially Annie is making him write this new book of misery. But also, it's a really interesting spin on it where by now, his opportunity to retake control of that character it helps him actually get through this horrific event. And it leads brilliantly to that conclusion of the film and that great climax when he uses it to his advantage to defeat her, and he burns it, and it's a great way to kind of take control of that again when this crazy fan had wrested it from him, too far from his grasp.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Now, talk a little bit about James Caan. How do you feel like he did representing Paul Sheldon? Because this was one of those sort of contested casting decisions, and when you look at the list of men that were approached to play this film, it's pretty much everyone you could possibly imagine, and they all turned it down.
Yeah, William Hurt, Kevin Kline, Michael Douglas, Harrison Ford, Dustin Hoffman, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Richard Dreyfuss, Gene Hackman, Robert Redford. Warren Beatty wanted to do it, but he wanted to rework the script, and then Dick Tracy got extended, so he couldn't. And so somebody brought up James Caan, who said, sure. And it's like, I like picking up the scraps after all those guys. Right. No, but, the interesting thing about James Caan is I always see him as such an angry character.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because of The Godfather that I always picture him that way. But he certainly can play anger very well. And he works really well for me in this film. I think he plays this writer character really well. He gets a handle of just kind of this world, and he never goes crazy. He never is that high-octane James Caan. He is just very even keel, and he works really well reacting to this the crazies coming from Kathy Bates. And it's really interesting watching this chess match between these two brilliant actors as they play these two characters, as his character Paul Sheldon is trying to read her and trying to make sure he plays the right piece so as to not set her off again, or to make sure that he gets his drugs or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, I think so too. He is the most sort of it's interesting to look at him because he's sort of naturally masculine in this film, and it's that sort of works both in a couple of different ways. First of all, we get to see him just kind of in his general state of kind of frenetic action. When he's trying to wheel himself around the house, and he's trying to experience and take in all the things, all the various signals in the house, try to understand her movements and try to kind of parse that. But also, like, we get to see him convalescing, and he very much reminds me of my dad. When he was having sort of like just being taken care of, and there was something that was really sort of naturally pleasant in the first sort of 30 minutes of the film before her first big turn, where she comes in the middle of the night and stares over at him. And so I found him really appealing in this film, and it was such a twist. I think what had he done? Obviously, he'd just done, because I think, when did Dick Tracy came out? Right before this.
Dick Tracy.
They were both 1990 releases, but I don't remember when exactly.
Dick Tracy was the summer. This was in the winter. But he wasn't in Dick Tracy, though.
Yes, he was.
He was?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. He was one of the guys.
He was one of the mob guys.
Right. Spaldoni.
So that I find equally interesting that he was in this movie. And he wasn't huge in this movie, but in Dick Tracy. But anyway, he comes off of Dick Tracy. But right before this, he was in another one of my favorites, Alien Nation. And it's a very different character. Like, everything I had known, like you said, everything I had known about him was defined by this crazy angry guy, or this crazy confused guy, or this crazy, we go back to, we've already talked about him and sort of his experience in being a man in Thief.
Right.
And so there was much about him that was counter to my experience of his role here. And I think that made it all the more interesting to watch. And I found myself feeling the same thing. Wow, that James Caan, he's really pretty good, in this film even now. And I've seen this movie a dozen times.
Yeah, he does a great job in it. But the nice thing about him being such kind of that masculine character is it works really well when you see somebody that you've seen play such a masculine character have to be so broken and have to rely on somebody so much, which you kind of were alluding to.
Yeah.
It's really interesting when it's just horrifying when she pulls the blanket back and you see those legs that are just like puffy and swollen and blotchy and broken and all wrapped up. And this guy, I mean, he just can't get around. And so it's great as he starts finding his strength to sneak out of the room or to just come up with his little plans. It's nice to see kind of that machine working again, and whether it's just his mental machine or whatever. But it's great that James Caan is kind of working his way out.
Well, and that's one of the reasons, because he plays that piece so well. That's one of the reasons that when she discovers that he's been getting out, why her reaction to that and his reaction to that experience is so powerful, because she confronts him so gently as he's in bed. And we've been watching his legs heal. We've been watching him get better over the course of the film. And then she comes in and she comes at him with an idea, essentially. So this is, I know you've been getting out. This is something I have to do, for your own good. It's that sort of maternal, again, that nursing kind of aesthetic that comes to bear here, where she has a solution to a problem and she goes ahead and executes, and that is of course the hobbling scene where she puts the wood between his ankles and then smashes his feet with a that breaks his ankles inward with a sledgehammer, and that I think is the sort of third point of James Caan's performance that I think is really wonderful. It's not the hobbling itself, because I can imagine being able to muster the nerve to scream, but it is the weakness that we get to see leading up to the hobbling as he is begging her not to do it. That is a side of James Caan that I don't think we see very often, and I really love it. I am just really drawn into that scene, as horrifying as it is. And this is in contrast to the book, where I believe she actually cuts off his foot.
Yes, she's a lot more violent. I mean, it's violent either way, but she actually chops one of his feet off with an axe, and then when he complains about a missing letter on the typewriter, she actually slices off his thumb with an electric knife.
Right, and you see, I think that the hobbling sequence in the film is an improvement on that. I think it's more horrifying because it is so much. I don't know that I have the words for it. I'm trying to figure out what is it about that hobbling that I find so much better than just cutting off. It's like cutting off the feet is expected. Like, I get it. Like, that's going to be the solution. But the hobbling, I think, is such a creative solution to her problem, much more creative than the kind of expected amputation.
I wish that I could find this quote. I was looking for it, but I couldn't remember where I had read it. But William Goldman had talked about that, because when he adapted the book, he had the hobbling scene. He left it the way that it was in the book, she axes his foot off. And that was something that I believe Rob Reiner wanted to change. And Rob was just like, it's too strong. It's going to it's going to take away from the film a little bit. And it was a big argument between William Goldman and Rob Reiner. And it was one of those things that he was just like, we have to keep that scene. That is the scene. That's the reason I wrote this script. And when he finally saw the film, or he saw it and recognized that Rob Reiner was right, that the horror in that moment is not in the fact that it gets cut off. It's just in the fact that she is crazy enough to do something like that. Mm-hmm. And if it was a big bloody mess, it kind of would have taken people out of it a little bit, because it would have just been a little more of a horror trope that you would expect, like you were saying, by kind of making it this something you're not expecting, but it's still equally horrific. And it's all about the psychology, and that keeps it focused on the characters, I think, a lot more rather than just the violent nature of it.
Yeah, that's precisely it. Those words are better than mine.
William Goldman's would have been better than mine if I could have found them. So.
I think that really captures what the pieces of the horror in the film that are muted yet so surprising that I think it earns a little bit more of the gruesomeness at the end. When we have the assassination of the sheriff at the top of the stairs, that's a bit of gore that comes as unexpected by the time we get to that point in the film. You know what I'm saying?
Shockingly unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, we just we know something's going to happen, but that this hole kind of erupts from his chest is something we I don't think we expect. Then the final sort of assault it's a scary fight between this woman who is clearly they have done a great job of establishing her physical prowess, her strength. I mean, just by letting her carry him on her shoulders through the blizzard was enough to set up that she is a force. But he is also compromised still at this point. He's hobbled, he can't walk, and he's weak, even though he's been doing his exercises by deadlifting a typewriter. It's he is in a weakened state, and so that's a scary fight. I think they set it up well, and they clearly have established that she's sociopathic, and it ends up being a great, thrilling, horrific climax.
Yeah, it's just fantastic. And just a nice little footnote to that climactic fight is the way that the head smashes into the typewriter when he trips her. I've always been kind of just I've always enjoyed how thorough of a banging it is. Because that head comes down so hard on that typewriter.
It really does.
And it's just one of those things. And I very distinctly remember, I don't know, as Entertainment Weekly or something that I read at the time, but they were talking about how they did that. And they actually made a mold of Kathy Bates' head that was, kind of like just a big, heavy mold of her, and they put all the hair on it and everything, and then they actually took that mold and they would actually smash it down onto a typewriter to get that thorough, just complete smack into the typewriter to make it so the audience could really feel that weight when the two collided, which I think works really well rather than CG or anything like that. It feels very 100% real.
It feels really bad.
It does.
It feels so bad.
I can see why she doesn't get up right away when she smacks her head into it.
Yeah, you feel like she shouldn't get up at all. And I think if there's anything, if we're going to nitpick it at all, the fact that she gets up again it falls into the horror trope. And yet I forgive it.
And that is even toned down from the book, which she gets up again. Like he, like what happens in the book? Okay, so she he stuffs the paper into her face, trying, eat this. She attacks him again. She trips. She smacks her head. She crawls on him and collapses on his chest from all of her injuries. He makes it out. He turns around, locks her in the room, and then she sticks her fingers under and is trying to grab at him. So she's still alive, and he is trying to figure out how is she still alive. So it kind of played with that horror cliche, but then he's in so much pain he has to go get some pills. He falls asleep and passes out. When he wakes up, some cops actually show up. He says, "Watch out, she's alive in that room." They go in, and she's not there. She'd broken through the window, and she had gone out to the barn, and she had gotten a chainsaw, and she was going to come inside and cut him to pieces. But in the process of going out there and all that, because of the skull fracture she got when she fell, she actually ended up dying, and they found her body outside with the chainsaw in hand. So it was much, much longer, more drawn out. So that's going back to what I said at the beginning about William Goldman. He really, even keeping some of that horror cliche in there, he did find a way to really whittle it down and made it much more of an efficient movie.
Yeah, you can feel it, and I feel like the film, when you look at at where the film's focus is, it is really a very intimate movie. Do you know?
Oh yeah.
Like we have James Caan and Kathy Bates, and their relationship is wonderful. But the other really important relationship here is Richard Farnsworth and Frances Sternhagen as Buster and Virginia. Buster is the everything guy, the sheriff and all associated roles, and Virginia his wife and assistant. And they have a wonderful relationship between the two of them as they go about kind of uncovering the disappearance of Paul Sheldon over the course of weeks. How do you feel about them?
I have always loved them. It's just such a great relationship that was built into this story about, a relationship between two people, one of them a very doting fan. This was a great way to show that kind of loving relationship that also is full of just that kind of acerbic wit and that attitude, which is so much fun when played by Farnsworth and Sternhagen. Just so much fun.
It is just wonderful. Their relationship and their marriage is it's just perfect for this film, and it makes it. It actually makes you consider. I think at the end, when he is Buster is ultimately killed, it makes you consider. That's a loss, that they built enough of the character into, and as a secondary character, even so, they built enough of that character into the film that you actually feel the loss.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought that was really wonderful.
Frances Sternhagen later appeared in The Mist, another Stephen King adaptation.
The Mist. I don't think I liked that one.
Oh, I do.
Do you? I
think that's a love it or hate it one.
Oh, all right.
But I enjoyed it quite a bit. She was also in The Hospital.
Yes. Now that one we like very much.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of, right?
Sort of, yeah.
No, I think we did like it. I mean, we don't need to watch it a whole bunch of times, but we liked it.
We did. Yes.
All right. What else do you want to talk about on this film? Shall we talk a little bit about? Do we need to talk a little bit about Rob Reiner?
I think we talked about him a lot in our last episode. I mean, I will say, watching these two films, all I could think of is, man, Rob Reiner needs to go direct another Stephen King adaptation, because that might get his career back on track.
Yeah, how many did he do? And it's
just these two.
It's just these two, but one of the things that I thought was interesting, he did a significant interview with TV legends, and you can find the whole thing. It's like, I don't know, 12 half-hour parts where they talk about Rob Reiner from birth to death. Wow. It's just a headshot of him. You can watch the whole thing. It's great stuff. But one of the things that he talks about, which I find really fascinating, is that Stephen King's relationship with him, and because of the work he did on Stand By Me and Misery, which were, as we talked about last week, Stand By Me was another one that was very important to Stephen King. These two films back to back really encapsulate this, his relationship to his youth and his relationship to his career, two things that are very important in his life, right? And that Rob Reiner was such a good, custodian of his stories. He said that he was going to end up giving first rights to, of his adaptations to Castle Rock. So even though Reiner didn't directly direct anymore, I think it was a total of like 6 films that Castle Rock ended up producing, and Rob Reiner was directly involved in that because of his relationship with Stephen King.
Nice.
Which they did. Dolores Claiborne,
right?
Gosh, what else? Anyhow, a lot of them. And good. And I don't know. There were as we get the later films, I think there were more that I liked more even than the earlier films that I that we've already talked about. So there may be another Stephen King series in us.
Yeah, the problem with looking up Castle Rock is all of the TV work that they did.
Yeah.
It makes their list so long that it's like impossible.
Yeah.
Every Seinfeld episode is on here. It's like, I don't need to see all of those. Can we just see the movies? I don't know. But yeah.
Anyhow, so that's this. That was I thought an interesting piece of the story about their history. So there you have it.
I agree. Well, we should mention that the fantastic Barry Sonnenfeld shot this.
Yes, he did, and I think it goes to that sense of claustrophobia that the film has, and I really like. First of all, it's a small town, obviously. All of the, it feels very much like a Western to me. I mean, the way we're introduced to the town is in, Buster's, from behind Buster, sort of from the wall, looking out toward the front door of the sheriff's office. And I love that shot in particular because it reminds me so much of like a saloon shot, where we get to see the door and the swinging doors, of an old Western saloon.
Right.
And so you get the feeling, it sort of puts you in a sense of place, I think, really nicely. And then, of course, the house is beautifully, I think, shot. Particularly the sequences where she is standing over him in bed, like any of the point of view sequences of Annie Wilkes from Paul are really terrifying, and I think are a credit to Sonnenfeld's creativity with the camera here.
And lens choice, using the wide angle lens.
Yeah.
Getting her close up to give that nice facial distortion when you're looking at somebody, it really does help emphasize that invasion of your space.
Oh, absolutely. Who else is hot?
And this, I was just going to say, this was the last film that Sonnenfeld did as a cinematographer. We have talked about him with Blood Simple. Early in his career, we talked about him, how he did some more with the Coen brothers, including Miller's Crossing, which we talked about. We talked about him in When Harry Met Sally and Sally.
Salary?
Celery. I've got celery on the brain. What can I say? I need my
man and his struggles to be a vegetarian.
It's a totally different movie.
Well done.
Yes, and then Misery. So this was the last before he switched hats permanently, and then started with the Addams Family, which is the very first directing role he did. So, and his latest is a TV movie called Dead Boss. A woman wrongly accused of murdering her boss is forced to prove her innocence.
Well, that happens.
Yep.
I guess. Barry.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, that's Barry Sonnenfeld. Just another random side note. Kathy Bates was also in Dick Tracy.
What was she in Dick Tracy? How is that possible?
Isn't that strange?
That's crazy.
She was it Mrs. Green? I don't know who that is, but
I don't either.
She was. It's like, God, what a weird connection.
That's
so
really
strange.
Funny. That's
so
really
strange.
funny.
Yeah. So anyway, that's that little note. Other than that, the music I think is effective in this film. It's not a soundtrack that I go to and listen to, but I think that the music works really well. Mark Shaman, he is a composer that can do some great stuff in context of the stories that he's telling. It's not always stuff that you want to kind of put on and play, but it does work really well. We've talked about him, and he did this. He did what else did he did some stuff in When Harry Met Celery. Sleepless in Seattle, South Park. I mean, he's got some good stuff, and but I think also what works really well is the Liberace music. where it's placed and how they do it. Like when Moonlight Sonata comes on during the hobbling scene, that is such a tranquil, relaxing piece of music. And to play that over that scene just further emphasizes the terror of it, because it's not creepy music. It's not scary. It's this amazing, almost lullaby sounding classical piece that works so well. And likewise, when Paul is writing, he's having that flurry of inspiration in his writing, you've got that great Tchaikovsky piece, and it works really well. And so whether it's Marc Shaiman's or the other music, I think that is something that's worth note, and how effective it works in context of the film.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think I think there are a lot of Shaiman's scores that I'm not as much of a fan of, but every now and again, he comes up with something that I think is really touching.
Yeah, I mean, he can do some good stuff. South Park, bigger, longer, uncut. Love that.
Me too. Me too.
Yes.
All right. And let's see. Anybody else strike you as fantastic?
The only thing, just a couple random things that no one else on the crew that I was going to hit on, but the just interesting note as far as Stephen King goes, this was actually going to be one of his Richard Bachman books when he was writing under the pseudonym of Richard Bachman. But he ended up, he was outed, I think, right after, I believe it was The Running Man, when this would have been his next book. And so because of that, he ended up releasing it as a Stephen King book. But I think it's one of those interesting things where when you look at the Richard Bachman books and you look at the Stephen King books, Richard Bachman's are grounded a little more in reality. They're not quite so kind of the fantastical horror stories with, cars that come to life with possessed spirits and all that sort of thing. And so it does kind of make sense that this would have been a Richard Bachman book. And so it's interesting that it's interesting, I think, any writer when they end up taking those pen names to kind of write other novels and stuff, and whatever the reasons may be. I think he took Richard Bachman because at the time in the 70s, I think publishers were really opposed to authors writing more than one book a year, and so he came up with a pen name so that he could be publishing more frequently.
Interesting.
Yes. And then the other random things is that this story has been adapted a couple other times. Once as an off-Broadway play. That
just more recently, right? I mean, not just a couple of years ago.
Well, it was revived in 2005. I don't know when it was originally made, but it was revived in 2005. And then it played, and that was in London, and then in 2007 in Greece, and then in 2012 in Dubai. So, strangely, but it started as an off-Broadway play. And then it was adapted again by a Dutch composer and theater producer. He adapted it into a musical. He calls it a feel-bad musical. He says Misery in feel-bad musical is what it's written as.
Oh my goodness. This is where David Fincher got it.
Yeah.
The feel-bad movie of the holidays.
It looks pretty funny. Like when I'm looking at the website for it, and they have this picture of the Annie Wilkes character kind of holding a giant, it is a giant mallet.
Well, and don't forget Julie Ganapati.
That's right.
The 2003 South Indian version of Misery.
Yeah, which is it's an actual remake of the film.
Yes,
not an
adaptation.
Of the novel. You gotta love that.
Goodness.
Yeah, I wonder if King and Reiner both get royalties from that.
I know. Is that on his top 10 list of favorite adaptations of adaptations?
Right. That's a whole other list.
Yeah, right.
He's got his favorite adaptations, but then the adaptations of adaptations. I think that's where all the Children of the Corn sequels go and carry the third remake.
That's right. Except for they're all musicals.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
Children of the Corn, the musical, is crazy. Just bananas what those kids do.
Malachi! He's coming for you.
Oh gosh. Love that old saw. Put the grown-up's hand in the blender. That's a real toe tapper.
Oh yes. Gets the whole crowd a clapping.
Yep. Sure enough does. I think we should talk about money.
Let's do it. This film did pretty well for itself. Of the R-rated films that came out in 1990, it was number 8 on the list. Yes, that's right.
And that's
good to know.
Saying something.
That's right. Behind Pretty Woman, which was the number 1 R-rated film of 1990, Total Recall, Die Hard 2, Die Harder, Presumed Innocent, Another 48 Hours, The Godfather Part 3, and Flatliners. Those were all ahead of it. But this film, it cost, what was it, about $20 million to make, roughly. And in today's dollars, that's about $35.6 million. It ended up grossing domestically about $61.3 million. So it made a nice profit. I couldn't find any international figures, but just from those domestic numbers, it ended up turning a handsome profit. And if you look at adjusted profit per finished minute, it was making about $680,000 per finished minute.
My goodness, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. Not as good as Stand By Me. That's still the highest grossing film on our list in the profit per finished minute, but it's second.
Not bad.
Not too bad.
All right.
Good job, Rob Reiner.
Good job, Rob Reiner. Let's rank it.
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel and you can check out our stack rankings, see if our movies line up with your movies, and if Misery will break the top 41.
41. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Misery or Carrie. I love how that keeps popping up. I would do Misery.
I would too. Good.
Excellent. Misery or 12 Monkeys.
See, I would probably...
That's a hard one.
Goodness.
I really, like, if I in my head go 12 Monkeys, oh, but then there's Misery. And then I go Misery, but
I know. And there's like sadness and shame.
I know.
What do we do here?
I'm going to say 12 Monkeys because I've watched it more. I don't know if that's a fair way to do it.
I think I'm leaning toward Misery.
All right, I'll do Misery. I'm really comfortable in either way on that one.
All right.
Misery or The Shining?
Misery.
Really? Over The Shining?
Yes, I know. Bananas, right? I just had a conversation about The Shining today, and I was just sort of reliving how it aged on me over this last one. And in the context of just sort of what I like about these two characters, these two characters, as soon as I think of Shelley Duvall, I think, okay, Misery.
That's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. I don't know if it's completely fair, but it is pretty funny. But I'll give you Misery.
All right.
Misery or Stand By Me? Wow, this is amazing.
Yikes. I'm going to have to go Stand By Me.
Yeah, me too. Misery or Aliens? Aliens.
Yeah.
Misery or The Fisher King? Do The Fisher King.
Yeah, I think so too.
Misery or The French Connection?
The French Connection.
Yeah. Misery or Fight Club?
Fight Club.
Okay, there you go. Number 20.
Wow.
It beat
41.
The top 41. Number 20 out of 155. Good job, Misery.
Outstanding. Well done, Misery. Misery the pig. Played by herself.
Played by herself. I always wonder about that. Like, really?
They had to find a pig that just happened to have a pig named Misery the
somebody
pig.
had pig named Misery. And
that could also act.
Yeah.
That was one acting pig.
That's a big ask.
I'd put that pig right up next to Babe any day.
Yeah.
That'll do, pig. That'll do. Hey, this was a good one. Where do we go from here?
Believe it or not, this series is coming to an end.
Wait, not? I choose not?
I know, we could just keep going. We could be talking about sometimes they come back again.
Maximum Overdrive?
There's that torturous one with Morgan Freeman with the the alien poop that comes out of the toilet. What is that?
Oh yeah, no, God, that was horrible.
Oh. I still am convinced that he wrote that while he was doped up on his meds after the accident.
Didn't he admit that? I thought he actually admitted that.
Maybe he did. That was a trip. That was a weird.
Oh goodness, that was terrible.
Yeah, so there's some that we probably won't be talking about.
I wish I could remember what it was. Boy, that movie that didn't hold well. They went hunting, right? There was a hunting thing, and the guy he had like a Dumb and Dumber-esque poop on the toilet.
Oh, I can't remember,
It's
but
just so bad.
It was pretty terrible. It was a Dreamcatcher.
That's the one. Yeah, that was terrible. The book was better. I remember that.
I didn't read that book, but that's what happens to a lot of his, especially the TV movie ones. Sometimes you watch the TV movies and it's just like, oh, wow, they didn't quite capture that right. You can tell it's a budget thing sometimes. But
anyway, so where did you say what we're doing next week?
I didn't. We started talking about all these other things that we're skipping because the series is ending, and you got so sad.
I did get sad, and
so we digressed to keep not having to end it. But alas, we're going to end it next week with this is the second of the adaptations that we will be talking about from different seasons. This is Apt Pupil.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I really want us to talk about this one. That's good.
I haven't seen this since I saw it in the theater, so I'm curious to go back and watch it again.
Yeah. No, me too.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, I feel good about this.
Yeah. The final moments of our 8-part Stephen King series comes.
Excellent. All right. Well, hey, this was good.
Yeah.
I gotta go to bed.
I'm gonna go read a romance novel.
Mine is actually, this is interesting. It was written by Mark Twain.
Wow. From the grave.
Mark Twain's writing from Monrovia, Liberia in 2007. I had a hankering to watch this movie, so I started to last night, but somehow the movie didn't interest me at all. I had absolutely no interest in what was going to happen next because, one, I didn't care about the character of Paul Sheldon. If you want the audience to be on the edge of their seat when the character is in peril, you have to get the audience to identify with that character, as happens for the first half of Titanic. But Misery is like Titanic starting halfway in. It doesn't work that way. Even con men know this. That's why they're called confidence men. In this movie, my only reaction to Paul Sheldon was annoyance. He seemed like a typically lousy writer with a slovenly personality. I didn't mind that he was getting tortured. The plot was implausible and uninteresting. Sheldon is far too docile and unresourceful. He just sits there like he should have a sweatshirt that says, victim. Caring about a born victim is for suckers. Real victims usually try to save themselves a lot more desperately than he did. His token efforts to save himself were token at best. So I turned it off, wondering what possessed me to ever want to watch it in the first place. Scene.
Wow. Mine is by Casey Strawberry Blonde.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this.
Just a 2-star one. And it's really long, so I'm going to be drastically condensing it. Huge come down from the book. You'll hardly recognize it. I'm an RN who could kiss Stephen King for bringing public attention to the very real problem of evil, sometimes killer nurses who are either sociopathic or narcotic addicted and still working in healthcare. Still, the movie is so disappointing. There are several parts that don't add up, but James Caan's golden Razzie-worthy performance is what completely ruins it. I didn't expect all of the mind games and psychological warfare that goes on between the hero and villain in the book to be communicated in the movie, but was disappointed that more of it wasn't. I thought that was the main point of the story. Silly me. Again, I thought the whole story was supposed to be about a villain who is an evil genius and her kidnapped victim who is so intelligent and able to hold it together that he has a chance, even though the odds are greatly stacked against him. Instead of portraying that, Caan acts like he thought he was supposed to be portraying Wile E. Coyote. In one scene where the villain horribly abuses and tortures him, Caan writhes and yells twice, and then voila, half a minute later he's good as new, a la your favorite cartoon character. He didn't even break a sweat. That's it? I don't think so, James. Near the end, Caan needs a bath and some clean clothes, but otherwise looks like he just got back from a spa. Miraculously, his emotions are still rock solid. Right. That's fortunate because he needs to make a very nervy and dramatic escape attempt or be murdered by the villain. I think he creases his brow once during his escape attempt. There's still another scene at the very end that's bogus as it can be, that's as bogus as it can be, and an insult to people who've really lived through a certain medical problem. I won't tell you the ending, but my advice is to read the book and skip the movie. To see a performance by Bates that's excellent through the whole movie, I recommend Fried Green Tomatoes. To see a good one by Caan, I recommend The Godfather. If you want to read about real-life versions of Annie Wilkes, I recommend Nurses Who Kill by Clifford Leyendecker and William A. Burt.
Wow. That was like a review and a PSA all at once.
That's right. And that's the condensed version.
About nurses who kill and what is that medical condition? IBS?
I don't know. That's like, what is the certain medical condition she's referring to? I don't know.
That's a mystery.
Yes.
Andy, it is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
You are telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
I love The Next Reel Season 4. Do you know why?
I don't. Why?
Because we got to talk about my favorite movie, Terry Gilliam's Brazil.
That's not even an adaptation.
No, but it was such a great part of our great Terry Gilliam series, and a few others in that series were adaptations, like The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, adapted from Raspi's stories, and La Jetée, which inspired 12 Monkeys.
Oh, right. And for our Man with No Name trilogy, we saw how Sergio Leone's A Fistful of Dollars was basically stolen from Kurosawa's Yojimbo.
We added Labor Day to our Jason Reitman series, adapted from Joyce Maynard's novel.
Oof, there's one we'll always regret.
Our big Stephen King series covered adaptations like The Shining, Cujo, Christine, and Stand By Me, great horror and coming-of-age tales.
Another Coen Brothers adaptation, too. We got to talk about how they turned Homer's The Odyssey into Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
For our holiday series, we did The Bishop's Wife and The Poseidon Adventure.
And who could forget seeing Alec Guinness in the adaptation of Kind Hearts and Coronets during our series dedicated to him.
We really need to do more of his films.
Truly.
We had our first film noir series with classics like Double Indemnity, Detour, and Out of the Past.
And our black and white cinematography of James Wong Howe series with The Thin Man, Sweet Smell of Success, Seconds, and King's Row. So many adaptations.
Oh, you're not kidding. Dive deeper into these originals and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book you buy helps support our show.
Get the full list at thenextreel.com/originals and start reading today.